Let's talk a little bit about proportions. What proportions kind of stand out to you in this poem?
We're talking about the little sparrows quarrering with sharp voices over things that interest them.
Okay.
I can just kind of picture like two little shirts on the sidewalk trying to fight over a piece of bread or something, chirping at each other.
Okay. What do you think that section with the sparrows, what's the counterpoint to that?
It's the counterpoint.
So we're talking about a lot of times with these proportions, there's one side, but then there's also the other side. What's the other side to the spheres?
So it's talking about how the birds are communicating, they're arguing over things that interest them, they're quarreling, so to speak. And then there's roughly 7 lines dedicated to that. There's about 6 out of those 13 lines in that stanza that are dedicated to we who are wiser, we in the sense meaning humans. We shut ourselves in. On either hand, wouldn't speak to the way that I took is wouldn't speak to one another. We don't communicate the way these birds, these simple creatures do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's almost
opposite. I'm glad you pointed out the lengths. Yeah. So 7 lines for the sparrows, 6 lines for the people, right? So for me, that's the proportionate relationship I'm looking at. It's almost balanced. What does that suggest to you that it's not exactly balanced? It's not 7-7. If we look at like numerology, 7 is often like the super holy number and things like that, very religious number.
The 7 is the number of completion.
Mm-hmm. So how do we interpret that we're giving 7 to the sparrows and then 6 to people? How do you guys interpret that?
Hold them in high regard.
So you hold like high regard, higher esteem for the birds in that situation.
We're going by the religious house for its completion.
So he's saying he said 7 lines for a sparrow, maybe 6 lines for 6 lines of
I don't know all like the numerology and things like that. But like there's 6 lines that are dedicated to talking about the we, right? But we who are wiser, 1, shut ourselves, 2, on the other hand, 3, and no one knows 4, whether we think 5 or evil, 6. Right. So all the sparrow section had 7 lines in total. The section dedicated to we had 6 lines. Okay, so almost balanced. Not perfect, but almost.
Says humans, we rest on the 7th.
It could be that. To me, it seems to imply a little more like the imperfection. Like it seems to me that if we had to guess what the speaker's perspective is, which one is the speaker viewing more favorably?
Sorry, are you asking?
Yeah.
The birds.
The birds? I agree. Are there any positive traits of people though?
We're wiser. We keep to ourselves, so we don't play our hand, I guess, in the sense that you don't know. If you see me by this, you wouldn't know whether I'm evil or not, but also if I'm good or not. We don't know.
So I feel like there is some tension there. Like it's not like entire like, oh man, they have it so great, and we have it bad. There are some advantages.
Yeah. I think to me it's spoken to the level of we're meant to be these complex creatures with maybe this hierarchy of needs. And then sparrows are fighting over, like you mentioned, bread maybe, or things that interest them. Yeah, they communicate more.
I think this also speaks to just the power of, again, word choices, language. We look at the conjunction, the word but. I forget what study I was looking at, but it's, but such a dangerous word, right? Because you can say like 1,000 good things about someone. Like if you're doing a review, if you ever had a performance review, say, oh, you do this, and you're waiting for it, right? You're waiting for
the but.
And what happens psychologically is as soon as someone says but, it just erases everything that comes before it. Like it's such a powerful word. In writing, it's a word that often indicates terms and things like that. So we have to be very judicious with it. Moving on, where are some other elements of proportions that we see? The second half.
I looked it up. It's dog feces. It's like they're bleached. Dog feces, like dog poop.
Interesting.
Written dog.
Got a new word to try to bring up. Okay, all right. How about proportions?
So there's a disproportion there, intentional, I think. Or I guess, well, it kind of mirrors the top. There's more lines dedicated to the old one who's picking up the dog line. There's 7 again, which is the amount dedicated to little sparrows. Only in this instance, there's only 3 lines dedicated to the Episcopal minister. And you flat out says that the tread, the walk, the gait that the old man has is more majestic than that of the minister. And when you're juxtaposing the things, what came to mind is the idea of cleanliness is next to godliness, right? You're picking up dog shit, you're picking up dog shit, you're not going to be very clean. And yet he holds this person in higher regard than a minister who's walking towards the pulpit and preaching.
Just curious, which lines did you have associated with the man? Where did you start counting?
Well, I guess, meanwhile, I counted, you counted that as part of that. So if not, it's only 6, I guess.
Because I guess that's the part I'm kind of,
I guess that's a but, I guess.
I'm trying to decide, like, where does the section about the man really start and where does it really end? I guess for me, I probably wouldn't include the meanwhile. I probably would start, like, the old man gathering dog line, walks in the gutter without looking up. For me, it kind of ends on the without looking up. Because even, like, in his tread, I mean, that's almost, we're talking about the tread of the man than actual man, you know? But this is, if you group that with the man, I get it. Because for me, the part that kind of shifts to the minister is almost with the more majestic. But if you lump it down with the data, I could see it. So that being said, you know, if we're just trying to take this to our own poems, like trying to have ideas in mind about the nuance that you want your reader to go into with your proportions and things like that, because people are looking for these sorts of relationships and trying to be like, am I going to be perfect? Like if I'm going to do 4-4, or do I want to suggest hierarchy? Do I want to suggest tension? So maybe I'll dedicate 5 lines to this one versus 3 lines to this other, you know, so things, just being aware of what you're doing with your proportions, because that can add another layer of nuance to your poem and make it more complicated and enriching.
Is that a myth, though, of approaching the pulpit of a Sunday? Shouldn't that should be on a Sunday? Because I don't really go and feel like to me since the pulpit every Sunday.
I will say, I mean, William Carlos Williams is also writing, but he's also writing, you know, some modernist 1920s. So it could have been different preposition back then. Other questions for me about this poem?
You said this is from 1920s?
I don't know the exact date. He was writing around that time period, right around World War I.
Oh, so it's at least a century old.
It's been around a little while. Besides the date, other questions for me about this piece, or things you noticed that we didn't talk about?
I guess the fact that the last verse is only 2 lines makes it so that, I don't know if it's so that it carries more weight, but it definitely stands out. He talks about he has 2 comparisons, and then he flat out states, these several things is astonishment beyond words.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first that's doing a lot of things differently, right? It's a single line. I mean, it's a single sentence spread out across 2 lines. It's the first time that me has appeared. the only time we got a subject pronoun was with we, right? For a first person subject pronoun. So it's the first time the speaker's on his own. It's a 2-line section. There's no counterpoint. So I teach pronunciation. And one of the things that I tell my students that, people in North America, like English speakers, native speakers, are looking for is they're looking for contrast. They're looking for people to break the pattern, because a lot of other languages, they can be very melodic, but they tend to be very flat. And you don't typically add a whole lot of inflection until the end of sentences. Whereas in English, it's constantly moving up and down. And so basically in English, every time you start to fall into a pattern, you break the pattern. And that section there, I mean, there's so many ways it's breaking the pattern. Everything before it, very long sentences, right? The first sentence is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines long. Your second sentence is similar length, right? Your second stanza is 1 sentence, right? And so to suddenly just have that 2-line sentence is doing a lot of breaking and disruption. So when you say it really kind of stands out to you, I mean, I think that there's a lot of reasons why. So another tool that we can use, it's I don't know if you guys like to write fiction, but that's another thing in fiction. Like, not every line, every sentence you write has to be 2, 3, 4 lines. Sometimes the 3-word sentence can really
And more weight.
Yeah, it says a lot more.